It's the chorus pedal that got me hooked on chorus pedals, the Boss CE-20. The Giga Delay DD20 is perhaps the most legendary of the Something 20 series, but the CE-20 certainly deserves our attention. It's got 6 modes and a whole bunch of features, but let's get acclimated before diving into the deep end. Let's start out with the standard mode. It is indeed a standard chorus, doesn't feel like any singular pedal in particular to me. However, if you're hearing this in stereo, you're getting a really nice treat right now. And like a lot of choruses, it's got rate and depth. It's also got an effect level knob up top, and these 3 knobs are how we're going to set how subtle or upfront we want the effect to be. More after this. With the effect level knob all the way up, it's a 50-50 mix. There's no fully wet option here. This is as far as it goes. And you may have noticed that for the opening jam, I had this set kind of around the midpoint for a lot of the guitars. I wanted to do a jam that used chorus, but wasn't all about chorus, if you know what I mean. Now, in addition to the standard mode, we've also got something that is specifically called out as CE1. Not just CE, not just ensemble, but CE1. I wanted to do a rapid fire back and forth A/B test there, but there's no easy way to do that with the stereo outputs for reasons which we will understand in a little bit. But my main takeaway there is they both have the same flavor, even if the CE-20 is a bit more present. And obviously, this is not a real CE-1 that it was compared to. It's a CE-2 Waza in CE-1 mode. This is probably also a good time to mention that I'm going to be doing a lot of explaining and tangents and side quests in this video. It's kind of what I do. If that's not your style, there's chapter markers down below there, and there's probably a whole bunch of other great CE-20 videos over there you can click on, so take your pick. I will not be offended. Now, something else that I never realized because I never owned a CE-1, but on the original, these rate and depth controls were there for the vibrato mode only. In chorus mode, we get the intensity control, which primarily functions as a rate control. I'm guessing that was to make sure the CE-1 chorus always sounded like a CE-1 chorus. Kind of like how the jazz chorus has vibrato rate and vibrato depth, and we get zero controls for chorus mode because it sounds perfect just the way it is. And true to form, the CE-20 gives us a single intensity control by way of the rate knob. The depth knob does nothing. Although on the CE-2 Waza, we get rate and depth in CE-1 mode. But we're here for the CE-20, and 4 of the 6 modes on here get their own rate and depth controls, and it's important to realize that you really need both. Without rate, you're not moving, and without depth, there's nowhere to go. Vibrato is kind of like a shark. It needs to be in motion. Actually, think of it as a stylus on a record. If we put a second stylus right behind this needle in the same groove and we park it right there, we get a delay, but no change of pitch. It's not until we start moving it back and forth, essentially speeding up and slowing down the playback speed relative to the perspective of the first stylus, that we get that vibrato. And that vibrato plus the unaffected dry signal combines to give us chorus. You know, I've covered chorus like 50 times. That was the first time I thought to use a record player and a laser pointer. All right, we've covered standard and CE-1. We're not even halfway through this knob yet. We got to keep going. Now, according to the manual, the rich setting offers us chorus with unprecedented breadth and minimal thinning of sound. Well, I'm intrigued. It's the rich mode, it's a chorus setting, and it seems like it's doing something. Okay, forget what I said about how a chorus effect works, because listen to this. I'm playing just a plain old C from my synth into the pedal. Yeah, it's using some sort of digital magic to pitch or make it sound like it's pitching up one side while pitching the other side down. And there's a couple ways that I could show that, but why make it complicated? Here I am flipping between the outputs while my tuner listens in. It's almost like a detune, but I don't think it's doing a digital pitch detune. I think it's doing 2 chorus effects opposite one another and then trading off between them, because While the one side is pretty stable, the other side has a flutter to it. I also feel like Boss wouldn't do digital pitch shifting in a pedal and then not make a big deal about it. That's just Boss being Boss. But once I noticed what was happening in rich mode, it made me think about the Stereoness of this pedal. What else is hiding in here? I used a mixture of scopes, graphs, and just plain old listening to build up a series of charts, and here's what I came up with. Standard acoustic, bass, and rich modes. Both channels operate fully independently, dual mono with 2 inputs, true stereo with a single input. With 2 inputs, CE1 mode essentially operates as a pair of CE1s. It passes the dry signal on the input side and creates a vibrato signal on the other. And then it does the same in reverse for the other input. Single input, it does one dry side and then vibratos the other. And the dimension effect, let's just say it's working as it should. More on that in like this portion of the video. Perhaps most importantly, in all of the modes, no matter how we use the inputs, the outputs do not phase cancel out the effect. In the CE-20, I think it's doing like an inverse LFO to the delay, kind of like on my CE-300 Super Chorus. See, it's even got the block diagram right here, you can see. Zoom in on that, cameraman. And this is different from running one delay line and then just phase inverting the vibrato output. But let's keep things moving because I said we were going to come back to the dimension effect. That's what made me buy this pedal in the first place, because my guitar teacher had one of these, a DC3, and I wanted that sound bad. And this was pre-DC2 Waza. This is pre-TC Electronics Third Dimension. It was pre-reverb.com. So this was my introduction to this. The Boss dimension effect is sometimes called a motionless chorus. It starts with 2 chorus effects operating opposite one another, but that by itself would be the CE-300 Super Chorus. In the dimension, there's this additional complex network of companders and crossovers that gives us this deep immersive experience without feeling too busy. It's what makes it a dimension effect, and it's why the CE-20 is the chorus ensemble dimensional processor. Now, can it replace this? Or even this? It's kind of like the CE1 mode thing. It has the same flavor. It does the thing. But if you're looking for the best version of this... Now, this pedal says Dimension D, aka the DC3, aka the Digital Space D. And that makes the most sense, seeing as how this is a digital dimension effect. But in dimension mode, the depth knob takes a holiday, doesn't do anything. The rate knob turns into a rotary version of the 4 buttons and a few of the combinations on the DC2. Where the whole thing about the DC3 is that it has knobs for dialing in the effect, including rate and depth. So make sense of that.
Oh, wait a second. I actually can make sense of that. According to the manual, it's based on neither pedal specifically, but the original rack unit, the STD 320. There we go. Back to the video.
What's really interesting is that the DC2 and the DC3 were both mono in, stereo out. The Waza version added the second input, meaning that for a while, this was the only dimension pedal that could take a stereo delay as an input, as suggested on page 5 of the manual. That was a great suggestion. We've got 2 more settings to go, so let's grab our beanies and try out the bass mode. You know what, as long as we're getting fancy, let's try out the acoustic mode. And I'm gonna be honest, I love my Epiphone acoustic guitar, but I've never been able to get a good sound out of the built-in pickups. I always use a mic, so take this with a grain of salt. Yeah, the manual says that in acoustic mode, ripple is minimized. Felt like something worth testing out. The modes are important. The modes are good. But there's also all this stuff going on up here. There's a low and a high, cut or boost. Nice to have. There's also a brilliance, which raises the harmonic content, and ambience. Brilliance seems to bring in more of the upper frequencies, some of that sparkling pick on string kind of noise, where I think ambience is giving us some reverb by way of a short delay with a medium feedback. It's hard to tell what's actually going on because it's all digital and the manual is all gear page words. Now, one of the first things I do when I get my hands on one of these Boss pedals with presets is to change the LED pattern from 1 to 2. By default, it goes 1, 2, 3, 4, which seems perfectly normal, but this is much easier to read at a glance, especially when the lighting is low and our attention is divided. Now, when we have a setting we like, we just have to press right, and then we select the correct memory slot if we want to change that, and then hit right again. But what if we don't really need all 4 presets? What if after the new pedal stage wears off, we've got 2 settings we mostly bounce back and forth between? Rather than make a full round trip every time, we can power on the pedal while holding down select, and then use select to select the pedal mode 2 or 3. Now, I like 3, and let me show you why. In mode 3, the left foot switch is on-off. It's always on-off. That never changes on this pedal. The right foot switch in mode 3 goes between the manual setting, or whatever the knobs are currently set to, and a setting over here, basically giving us 5 presets, 4 plus 1. And now we can go back and forth between manual and that preset every time. And if we want another preset, a different preset, just hit both foot switches at the same time, and now we're on the next one. Super flexible and practical implementation. We love when Boss does stuff like that. We also love when Boss does stuff like this. See this little peak LED right here? That's going to light up if we're driving this a little bit too hard, and we should back off lest we get some digital clipping in there. It's also got a headphone output, which I actually used quite a bit in the planning of this video, because as much as I love my aux, the one thing it doesn't do is stereo, unless I buy a second one. And I felt that stereo would be really important here. Now, elephant in the room. Why now? Why not 25 years ago? I mean, those S-tier Waza pedals exist, so does the MD200 and 500, which have way more effects, probably sound better too. For me, personally, it comes down to keeping it simple on purpose. I can think of this as a chorus pedal with 4 presets. And if I go blank, the controls are right there and there's no menus to dive through and get lost in. I bought this for $80 in 2008 off Harmony Central. RIP. Now, reading through my emails, I also see that I paid for it with a money order and that it took a while to get to me because the seller sent it in a tequila box, which the USPS did not really appreciate. But I'm doing this video because I legit do think this is a great value of a pedal. And if someone knows that they want some chorus effects, but they don't want to commit to a single pedal or go down the modulation super pedal route, there's also a lot of options and flexibility in here. Also, Higher Noon said on one of my previous videos, maybe 2026 will be the year the CE-20 will get its own video. Happy holidays. I'll catch you on the next one.